In today's video,
I'm going to be showing you 2 fall decor makeover projects that I did using things that I have in my house that just didn't match my decor anymore. So I'm going to show you how I changed that. Hi, I'm Melissa. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for coming by. You know, I have a few things in my fall decoration boxes that I just haven't used in a couple of years just because they just look dated, the items look old or faded, and they're great pieces, but I just don't use them anymore. So instead of going out and buying something to replace it, I decided I was just going to give them both a makeover, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and get into repurposing.
my first project was to repurpose or give a facelift to these pumpkins that I got from Dollar Tree. I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I guess, but I didn't really like what was on top of the pumpkins. So I took the floral off the top and decided to paint it with some Waverly chalk paint in white. I love painting with chalk paint because it gives it more of a matte finish. And this pumpkin was just too shiny and it was yellowed looking. So yeah, I decided to paint it with the white chalk paint. And you will notice I am pretty much a messy painter. I get it everywhere. So yeah, just don't pay attention to the fact that I'm a messy painter. These 2 pumpkins are like a styrofoam, not a full styrofoam. I don't really know. It's not plastic and it's not, ceramic, but they are that little styrofoam. So it is easy to paint. And now I'm just going to hot glue a couple of leaves, well, a leaf on each pumpkin, on the top of each pumpkin, and it'll kind of cover up the place where I took the original topping off. But now I'm just going to put these cute little wood pieces that I got from Dollar Tree. I'm going to put those on the top of the pumpkins, and they will be used as like the stem of the pumpkin. And so yeah, that is my pumpkin makeover. Now I'm gonna give a facelift to this little piece, and it actually belonged to my mother, and when she passed away, I went through her decorations because I wanted some things of hers that, I could keep. But anyway, I'm going to use chalk paint again, and the red that I'm going to paint the bottom section is called Lacquer. And then I'm going to paint the middle section with the color, also Waverly, with the color Maize. And the pumpkin is going to be a Waverly chalk paint that is called Pumpkin. So those are the colors that I used. Now, you will notice that it takes quite a few coats of the red and the yellow. And when I say quite a few, I mean like probably 5 or 6. Well, mainly just around the words, because I should have probably sanded it first just to take some of that top off of the words, because man, it took forever to cover. You can see right there, it is still just not covering. So like I said, it did take a while to cover. But I got my little sponge brushes, I think from Walmart. And then you'll see, not so much here, but in a few minutes you'll see the yellow is kind of a little too pretty yellow, or like summery yellow. So I ended up adding a little bit, because a little goes a long way, a little bit of the Waverly chalk paint called Truffle in with the yellow and mixed it up, and it gave it more of a fall yellow color, more like a cornflower color than a pretty Eastery yellow color. So yeah, and it didn't take quite as many coats to cover the word on the front under the yellow, but it did still take quite a few. Okay, so now it is the pumpkin's turn for a little makeover. So again, I'm using that Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin, and I was a little concerned that it was going to be too bright of an orange, but once I started painting it on there, it ended up looking pretty much the color that I wanted it to look. I have finished painting the pieces, and you can kind of sort of still see one of the letters shining through, but I have words that I put trimmed out on my Cricut for the front, so it'll probably cover it up, but I need to paint the little stem of the pumpkin, and for that I am using the color Moss of the Waverly chalk paint. And I feel like it's a good color green. It's not super primary color green, but it's not super pastel either. So anyway, now that I have painted the stem, I'm going to go ahead and see the stitching on the back of that pumpkin. I tested it out first, but I'm going to do it around each of the rectangle part of the piece. And I'm just going to do the stitching around the edges. And I feel like this is a super easy way to just kind of dress it up a little bit and make it a little bit more finished than just leaving each side open and, nothing being on the sides. So anyway, I do like doing the little stitching around the edges. Okay, now I'm going to move along to putting the stitching on the pumpkin, and I do the same thing as I did with the bottom portion of this piece, and I just use my permanent marker to put the stitching around the outer edges of the pumpkin and then the raised inner portion of the pumpkin. All right, so these two leaves are what I'm going to use on this red and yellow portion of this. You can see the stitching and how cute that looks, but I'm going to put one leaf on the top and one leaf on the bottom, and that is going to kind of add a little bit to it. Now comes the fun part. So I decided to use the Dollar Tree vinyl, which is a permanent vinyl that I used in my Cricut to print out my words Hello Autumn. But I quickly learned that the Cricut transfer tape is way too strong for the Dollar Tree vinyl. I could not get the tape off, so I ended up reprinting it or recutting it out and put it on, or used painter's tape to try to do the transfer. And so I cut these two pieces apart and I cross my fingers and hope for the best. And as you will see, it takes me a few minutes, well, not even a few minutes, it takes me a few seconds to realize that, you know what, this vinyl's not coming off this painter's tape either. So I ended up cutting the camera off and just going very, very slowly to peel it back centimeter by centimeter, millimeter by millimeter, until I got every bit of it off onto the piece of wood. And man, I didn't know if it was going to happen, but I made it happen. So after a lot of sweat and deep breathing, you can see that I got the lettering onto the wood, got it to stay, and so I painted a little dimension or whatever on the green stem, and now I'm going to do the same thing to the leaves just to add a little extra, dimension to it. So now that I have the words on, I have the stitching done. I have the stitching done on the leaves. I'm going to go ahead and hot glue one leaf on the top little rectangle and one on the bottom. Then I'm going to use some Mod Podge because after all I went through to get that lettering on there, I did not want those letters to go anywhere. So I'm using Mod Podge to paint over the letters. And if you've ever used Mod Podge, you know that it goes on kind of cloudy, but once it dries, it does dry clear. So I am sealing those letters in good. They are not going anywhere. The Mod Podge is done, so now it's time for me to hot glue the pumpkin. I'm going to put the hot glue on the bottom of the pumpkin and kind of in the hole a little bit, and I'm just going to push that pumpkin down back on that stick, and there's the final result. All right, tell me what you thought. Do you like it before I redid it, or do you like it after? Anyway, again, if you have something like this in your house that you want to redo, give it a little facelift, tell me what it is below. Or if you have done something like this, tell me what you did. And again, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you as part of my YouTube family. And don't forget to click the bell button and give me a like, because it does help my channel. And until the next video, I hope you have a great day. Bye.